Even as he spake, the great waves smote down upon him, driving on in terrible wise, that the raft reeled again. And far therefrom he fell, and lost the helm from his hand, and the fierce blast of the jostling winds came and brake his mast in the midst, and sail and yardarm fell afar into the deep. Long time the water kept him under, nor could he speedily rise from beneath the rush of the mighty wave, for the garments hung heavy which fair Calypso gave him. But late and at length he came up, and spat forth from his mouth the bitter salt water, which ran down in streams from his head. Yet even so forgat he not his raft, for all his wretched plight, but made a spring after it in the waves, and clutched it to him, and sat in the midst thereof, avoiding the issues of death. And the great waves swept it hither and thither along the stream. And as the north wind in the harvest tide sweeps the thistle down along the plain, and close the tufts cling to each other, even so the winds bear the raft hither and thither along the main. Now the south would toss it into the north to carry, and now again the east would yield it to the west to chase. But the daughter of Cadmus marked him, Ino of the fair ankles, Leucothea, who in time was a maiden of mortal speech, but now in the depths of the salt sea she had forgotten her share of worship from the gods. She took pity on Odysseus in his wandering travail, and she rose like a seagull on the wing from the depth of the mere, and sat upon the well-bound raft, and spake, saying, Hapless one, wherefore was Poseidon, shaker of the earth, so wondrous wroth with thee? Seeing that he soweth for thee the seeds of so many evils, yet shall he not make full end of thee for all his desire. But do even as I tell thee, and methinks thou art not witless. Cast off these garments, and leave the raft to drift before the winds. But do thou swim with thine hands and strive to win a footing on the coast of the Phaeacians, where it is decreed that thou escape. Here, take this veil imperishable, and wind it about thy breast, so that there's no fear that thou suffer aught or perish. But when thou hast laid hold of the mainland with thy hands, loose it from thee, and cast it into the wine-dark deep, far from the land, and thyself turn away. All right, we have some more divine intervention today. If you, like me, didn't catch this, let me provide you some research that I have done. Ino of the fair ankles was a mortal, though clearly now a divine being, of Leucothea. This passage doesn't make clear that they are one and the same person or exactly what transpired. We get some little investigation points that we can do, though. Daughter of Cadmus, we can look this up, meaning that she was a mortal princess, because considering that Cadmus was the first king of the city-state of Thebes, therefore she was a princess being his daughter. She was born mortal. She has kind of an interesting origin story in becoming a divine goddess. Her sister is Semele, who would eventually birth Dionysus, infamous player in Greek mythology. Ino, then, still being the mortal that she is, takes Dionysus in, raises him secretly. However, Dionysus is not only the son of Semele, he is also the son of Zeus. Now, here's the problem. Hera hates all of Zeus's illegitimate children. She wants nothing but to destroy them for revenge against Zeus. So Hera retaliates against Dionysus' existence by throwing Ino's household essentially into madness. Ino's husband goes insane. He kills one of their children. Ino herself is driven to madness and flees with the other child. And in her desperation, Ino's desperation, she jumps off a cliff into the sea. Some stories saying that she had her other son in her arms when she did it. But instead of dying, she is transformed into a sea divinity. Not a nymph the way that Calypso is, but in her transformation, like Gandalf the Grey into Gandalf the White, she transforms from a mortal being into a divine being, and thus gets a new name, Leucothea, otherwise translated as White Goddess. And it's often said that her son is also transformed into a sea spirit called Palamon. As a divinity, Leucothea is associated with the sea, not obviously at the level of Poseidon. She's a minor sea goddess. But because of her circumstances, she becomes associated with rescue, survival at sea. She aids sailors. It makes me wonder, when you get stories like the Odyssey, how many of these divine beings are created as plot contrivances and just entered into the pantheon of characters that we now know? Is there some sort of index that people are working from to know the cast of characters of gods that they can call upon for whatever their story requires? Like, is Homer looking at the existing cast list and going, oh, you know who would work really well here in opposition to Poseidon? What if Leucothea appears and aids Odysseus to his rescue? How much of her myth, how much of her story is really known or told before this? I mean, we'll never have these answers because so much of this initial mythology, which was oral in storytelling, was never preserved, never written down. I mean, a lot of it, most of it is gone, and we'll never know, I don't think. Well, I'm not the scholar. I'm not an academic, so maybe I shouldn't say that. But to my understanding, a lot of the research and indexing and inventory of all this stuff happens after stories like the Odyssey, the Iliad, and others kind of take shape. It's not until you get to people like Ovid or Plutarch that are really trying to put together family trees and understanding of how all of these people are connected. But what is she doing here with Odysseus? She sits on his raft. You can kind of picture that kind of supernatural-esque scene where in the midst of this crazy storm, where Odysseus can do nothing but hold on to the raft for dear life, she just kind of sits on it effortlessly and talks to him. But she's telling him, hey, that thing you're wearing, you may maybe take them off. Maybe get a little naked. Is this going to help him, or does she just want to catch an eyeful? But then she gives him a veil, a divine instrument of sorts, maybe of protection, guidance, who knows. Says that this veil will help you reach your destination. Let go of the raft. You think it's going to aid you right now, but I'm telling you, if you want to survive to the shore, let go of it. Use only this veil, and then when you place your hands on the shore, let it float off in the wind like you are Juliette Binoche at the end of a dramatic French romance. That's not a moment that ever happened in a Juliette Binoche film. I don't know why that popped up in my head, but she's giving him the guidance he needs to fulfill what Zeus has ordained for Odysseus' fate. Okay, that's all I got for today. Join me here tomorrow with 4 episodes left of Book 5. Until then, okay, goodbye. Odyssey is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. The show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Odyssey, written by Homer. Theme song by Neuroflow. You can support this show and other shows like it by going to patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.